Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in a piece of writing that is, well, it's as profoundly tragic as it is brilliantly constructed. It's called the Warsaw Anagrams.
It's an incredible document, a deep dive into a desperate investigation that takes place entirely within the confines of the Warsaw Ghetto between 1940 and 1941.
And the story of the manuscript itself is almost as compelling as the story it tells.
It really is. It was only discovered in 2008, found, tucked away under the floorboards of an old apartment in Warsaw's Murano district.
Right. And that apartment belonged to a man named Erik Cohen, a survivor of the ghetto who died way back in 1963.
Exactly. And Erik, the sources tell us, was the scribe for this text. It was originally written in Yiddish, but, and this is the critical part, Erik wasn't the author.
Okay, let's unpack that right away because it's a huge narrative layer. The investigator, the main character, is a psychiatrist named Dr. Erik Cohen. But the sources confirm that he dictated this entire harrowing account after he was dead.
Precisely. So Erik Cohen wasn't just hiding a memoir. He was taking down the testimony of what's known in Jewish folklore as an ibbur.
An ibbur.
Yeah. It's a spirit, often a righteous one, that temporarily possesses a living person, usually to complete some kind of unfinished mission or to impart crucial knowledge.
So that structure alone, it sets the tone for this whole thing, doesn't it? This is a voice literally crying out from beyond the grave.
It's driven by this incredible urgency, the need to remember, to resist being forgotten. It's a story that refuses to stay buried.
And the man at the center of it, Dr. Erik Benjamin Cohen, is a fascinating figure. He actually chose to move into the Jewish quarter in September 1940, even before the ghetto walls officially went up.
He did. He saw it as entering exile on his own terms, a kind of attempt to maintain some intellectual, some personal control over his own fate, even as those walls were closing in around him.
Which is such a tragically misplaced hope.
Oh, completely. The sources just hammer home how quickly the brutal reality of the ghetto crushed any idea of intellectual self-determination. We're immediately thrown into the sensory reality of that winter. 1940.
The descriptions are so vivid. Cohen talks about people just lumbering through these frigid streets, the ice cracking under their feet, and the immediate, almost normalized sight of death.
That opening image is so powerful.
Yeah.
He sees an old man just frozen solid outside a small grocery store.
And the details. He's wearing only a soiled undershirt, his knees are swollen and bare, his lips are bluish-gray encrusted with blood. It's just brutal.
And Cohen, the psychiatrist, he notes that the man's eyes were rimmed red. And he speculates that vision must be the last sense to depart. It's this cold, clinical observation in the face of absolute horror. It's a window right into Erik's analytical mind.
It is. And it really underscores this profound loss of purpose he's feeling. He starts with these massive intellectual ambitions.
Huge. He's planning to reread all of Freud's major works, especially the interpretation of dreams. He wants to write these exhaustive case studies on the psychology of confinement.
But that lasts, what, a couple of months?
If that. The sheer daily grind of survival just reduces all of that to practical necessities. The focus shifts entirely to basic heating.
He's burning his own books, his beloved books.
Burning his books for warmth and, just mending his trousers. The intellectual life, the entire identity of Dr. Cohen, it yields completely to the physical need to survive.
So he's caught in this struggle between just basic self-preservation and this deeper need for meaning. And the thing that pulls him out of that, what thrusts him back into the role of the investigator, is a devastating personal tragedy.
It is. The murder of his 9-year-old grandnephew, Adam.
And Adam's death is the catalyst. It transforms this document from, memoir of survival into this desperate secret investigation. The sources detail this frantic search.
Which ends at dawn, with the discovery of Adam's body. Just horribly exposed. The manuscript says it was tossed into the barbed wire.
That barbed wire, that boundary was everything. The line between the Jewish quarter and this terrifying unknown, and the state of the body just confirms the absolute horror of it.
Yeah. Adam's face was exposed, his skin was pasty and yellowish. But what makes this death different from all the others, the starvation, the random Nazi brutality, is the calculated mutilation.
His leg had been severed.
His leg was gone. His right arm was twisted at almost a right angle, and his hands were clenched into these tight fists.
And Erik tries to uncurl one of them.
He does, and he stops when he hears this sickening crack.
God, that sound.
It's incredibly symbolic, isn't it? Cohen later imagines that Adam fought back fiercely, punching and kicking and shouting my name. That clenched fist, that refusal to let go, becomes the entire driving force of Erik's investigation.
The boy wasn't a passive victim.
No, he was fighting for his life. And Erik, as the survivor, he takes up that fight.
So the investigation has to begin immediately, but it runs straight into the internal politics of the ghetto.
Right into a brick wall named Benjamin Schrei, a representative of the Jewish Council.
And Cohen has this great description of him. He says Schrei looks like the ghetto's version of Al Capone. Black trilby, crisp white scarf, a man in a very compromised, very dangerous position of power.
And Schrei's explanation for the murder is brutally political. He suggests Adam was executed outside the ghetto by the Nazis as a deterrent.
A deterrent to smuggling, right, the illegal commerce that was basically keeping the ghetto alive.
Exactly. Schrei claims the severed leg was just a message, something to frighten the community into passive, terrified acceptance. It's a narrative that points the horror at the known external enemy.
But Erik, with his training, he refuses to accept that convenient political narrative.
Not for a second. He does his own clandestine autopsy right there in the Pinkert's cart, that grim wooden cart they used for the dead.
And what he finds points inward, not outward.
This is where Erik the detective really emerges. He finds this tiny, almost invisible cut on Adam's bottom lip. But more importantly, he finds a piece of white string linka, in Polish, caught impossibly tight between the boy's teeth.
So tight he couldn't move it.
Couldn't budge it without risking breaking the jaw. And that right there, that suggests a specific act related to the murder. Maybe restraint, maybe some kind of binding, but definitely not a random act of Nazi execution for public display.
And the other physical evidence, the how of the mutilation, it also contradicts that deterrent theory.
It does. Erik observes deep bruising on Adam's chest. He theorizes a heavy left hand was used for leverage while a right-handed man sawed the leg. He even presses on the chest and hears a rib click.
And the murderer worked fast.
Very fast, which suggests they either disliked what they were doing or they were afraid of being caught. But here's the chilling part.
The blood.
No blood stains, not on his chest, not on his back.
So what does that mean?
It means the body was likely washed. It suggests preparation, care,
right,
a deliberate attempt to sanitize the corpse before dumping it.
That act of meticulous cleaning just completely undermines Schrei's idea of a body just being carelessly tossed into the wire.
It totally does. The psychological profile starts to emerge. This is calculated, meticulous violence. It's performed by someone who values cleanliness or secrecy, not political spectacle.
And that idea, meticulous violence, points to a pattern. And that pattern is confirmed when Erik learns about a second victim.
Yes. He connects with a woman named Dorota, the mother of Anna Levine, a young girl who was also murdered.
And her hand was cut off.
Her hand was cut off. And Anna's case immediately pulls the investigation outside the ghetto walls into what they called the Sitra Ara.
The other side.
The other side. That terrifying, lawless, non-Jewish world just beyond the barrier. A place you could only get to with bribes or through tunnels or illicit relationships.
Which Anna had.
She did. A forbidden relationship with an Aryan Pole named Pawes Sawicki. He was supposedly in Switzerland, but Anna refused to give him up, even though her own mother beat her for it.
So we have a dead boy and a dead girl, both mutilated, both connected to illegal activities, smuggling, and a forbidden relationship. But what really links them is that tiny piece of forensic evidence.
String. Erik is obsessed with it. He asks Dorota if Anna had anything in her mouth, but the body collector hadn't checked.
So it seems like a dead end.
For a moment. But then Schrei, maybe trying to deflect suspicion, who knows, he later mentions a third victim, a juggler named Jorg, also found mutilated.
And Schrei says Jorg might have had something in his fist.
Exactly. A piece of wet gauze. He describes it as being like wedding veil material floor in German.
So string in the mouth, gauze in the fist, missing limbs.
It confirms a signature. This is a targeted killer, or killers, operating with a bizarre, almost ritualistic method. The horror is customized, not generic.
And that detail, that specificity, is what forces Erik to dive headfirst into the ghetto's survival network, where he has to confront these deep moral compromises.
To even begin pursuing the truth, he needs money. And fast.
Because his niece, Stefa, Adam's mother, is now dangerously ill with typhus, the plague of the ghetto.
Right. So Erik has to sell the most valuable thing he owns. His late wife Hannah's 2-carat diamond engagement ring. He's hoping to raise 1,000 zloty for an illicit Swiss anti-typhus serum.
And the survival economy in the ghetto is just. It's completely mercenary. It operates outside any normal boundaries of decency or law.
And his guide into this dark reality is his best friend, Izzy. Izzy is the one who helps him venture to the other side, to the Citraara, to sell that ring.
Izzy isn't just a friend, he's a necessary accomplice. He's the protective force who's willing to embrace the violence that Erik, the intellectual, just can't.
Absolutely. He carries a German pistol. He calls it Marlene. And he jokes that it might kill the rudest person in the room. That mix of humor and violence is pure Izzy. It's how he copes.
And the transaction with the jeweler, Jawicki, it just illustrates that moral degradation perfectly.
Oh, yeah. Jawicki tries to fleece them. And Izzy doesn't negotiate. He just uses the threat of Marlene to force the jeweler to pay 3,000 zloty instead of the 2,700 he offered.
And that act is crucial. It shows Erik that to fight this kind of evil, sometimes you have to employ the instruments of evil yourself.
It's Izzy's moral flexibility that makes Erik's investigation possible.
So with the money for the serum secured, Erik shifts his focus back to the case. He realizes that to investigate a non-Jewish suspect like Poe Sawicki, he has to play the part of the oppressor.
Which requires an even deeper moral compromise, deception and forgery.
He goes to a forger named Otto.
A professional, the sources say. He'd previously made papers for the Polish Interior Ministry. And Otto creates this document for Erik, identifying him as Erik Honeck, a subdirector for the Warsaw district of the Reichsministerium des Innern.
The Ministry of the Interior. So he transforms himself from a hunted Jew into a German functionary. That must have been an incredible psychological burden.
Immense. And using this terrifying disguise, he goes to visit Paul Sawicki's mother.
And the description of her apartment is deliberately contrasted with the ghetto. It's lavish, it's full of Art Nouveau furniture, Oriental art, and most tellingly,
Heat. Intense, almost painful heat, compared to the freezing cold of the ghetto just yards away.
that contrast just highlights the profound gulf of suffering. And Mrs. Sawicki herself is openly contemptuous of Jews.
And she lies immediately. She claims her son Poe is in Zurich. But Erik, using his observational skills, he notices details that confirm Anna had been there before she died. He even imagines blood spattering on the whitewashed walls.
And in this small act of petty vengeance, he steals something.
He does. A little act of agency. He takes 3 gold-engraved envelopes and 6 exquisite Jugendstil Demitasse spoons. He can't fix the murder, but he can take something precious from the world that did it.
But the investigation inevitably spirals back into the ghetto's internal network, and it lands on a Jewish suspect.
Dr. Michael Tangman. He was Adam's doctor, Ewa's father. Described as being cheerful and duck-footed. Seemingly harmless.
But Erik suspects he's running a dark operation.
And he is. Michael is the one who connects the victims through their dark secrets. Anna had gone to him for help with a problem.
An abortion.
Erik later confirms it. Yes, she was scheduled for a dangerous, illegal abortion that Michael performed in the evenings with a hidden nurse.
So this reveals Michael's incredibly complicated, morally inverted survival mechanism.
It does. On the one hand, he's a lifesaver. He's the one supplying the illicit anti-typhus serum that Stefan needs. He's also getting black market insulin for his own diabetic daughter, Helena.
But on the other hand, he's a liar, and he's performing these fatal procedures.
We see that moral rot so clearly when the nurse, Anka, reveals that another patient, Esther Swabel, died from hemorrhaging after an abortion, and Michael just covered it up. He told her grieving father he hadn't even seen her.
That duplicity makes him the perfect suspect. He's outwardly benevolent, but inwardly compromised and completely capable of operating in the shadows.
But the deepest, most devastating betrayal comes from inside Erik's own incredibly fragile emotional network.
This is where his need for human connection it overrides his instincts as an investigator.
He starts a relationship with a woman named Melka Wilner. He meets her in a cafe. They have these moments of fleeting intimacy, sleeping together behind a rose-patterned curtain, a tiny bubble of normalcy in the horror.
And he confides in her, tragically.
He tells her everything. His list of suspects. Michael. Roy Klaus, the chorus conductor.
That move confiding in Melka is a catastrophic mistake. It nearly costs him his life.
Because Melka, whose real name is actually Karina, is Michael's accomplice. And his lover.
And she immediately reports Erik's suspicions right back to the doctor.
And what Michael does next is just chillingly calculated. He uses this intelligence to cleverly frame Ziv Levi.
Ziv, the shy 17-year-old chess player from the bakery.
Exactly. Michael fabricates this story, implying Ziv was the one recruiting kids for smuggling and ultimately for murder. He claims Ziv desperately needed money for his mother in the Warsaw Ghetto.
It's a masterstroke of deception. because it uses Erik's own flawed investigation against him. It leverages his trust and forces him to doubt his own evidence.
Right. Michael understands that by providing an internal suspect, someone who fits the profile of a desperate, morally collapsed ghetto resident, he deflects the trail away from the real accomplice, the German one.
It's just, before we move on to the final reveals, we have to absorb the scale of this moral crisis. You have Erik, the investigator driven by vengeance, Izzy, the agent of necessary violence, Michael, the betrayer hiding behind a doctor's coat, and Melka, the accomplice.
The pressure cooker of the ghetto isn't just killing people physically, it's forcing them into these utterly compromised roles.
And that despair, that stress, it reaches this terrifying emotional peak with the suicide of Stefa, Adam's mother.
Even though Erik had successfully gotten the typhus serum, it was too late for her spirit.
The detailed description of her final act is agonizing. It shows the level of control she was trying to reclaim in her death. She jumps from the fourth-floor window of Erik's apartment.
And Erik finds the evidence of her meticulous planning. She'd moved the heavy armchair. She'd forced open the tightly shut window. It was a complex, deliberate act.
But the detail that just broke me was the Moroccan slippers.
Oh, yes. Erik notices she put on her red and gold Moroccan slippers, and he realizes she did it to hide the open, festering sores between her toes. A corner of her misery that even he, her loving uncle, hadn't known about.
It was an act of final, deliberate agency, choosing dignity in death when life had become unbearable.
Stefa's death, coupled with the realization that he'd been betrayed and Ziv had been framed, it just fuels Erik's final, desperate push for the truth.
He needs to move quickly. And the crucial piece of evidence comes from the most unlikely and maybe the most Freudian source imaginable.
Irene Lanik.
The stepdaughter of the SS chief physician, Rolf Lanik.
She had attempted suicide, and because she'd read Freud, she insists on seeing Erik for psychiatric help. She believes he's the only one who could possibly understand her despair. Think about that. A German officer's stepdaughter seeking out a Jewish psychiatrist in the ghetto.
And during one of their sessions, she tells him about a dream about a man named Jeshin, who ends up with the flowers they picked.
And for Erik, whose mind is just constantly observing, constantly looking for patterns, it's like a switch flips.
Yeah.
He immediately connects that name to one he'd seen earlier, outside the ghetto, Jeshin Butcher.
The final anagram.
The critical connection. Erik realizes Jeshin is the Aryan accomplice, the courier, the one luring the victims outside the walls for the real killer.
So this moves the target completely out of the ghetto and into the hierarchy of the SS.
Right. So let's break down the horrifying structure of the murder ring that this anagram reveals. The victims, Adam, Anna, Jorg, they were selected by Michael or maybe Rowie. But the motive for the mutilation, that comes entirely from Michael's friend.
The high-ranking SS chief physician, Rolf Lanik.
This is where the story shifts from a local ghetto tragedy to a true medical horror story. Michael was running his illegal practice, the abortions, smuggling serum, but the killings, the mutilations, they were done for Lanik.
The missing body parts, the leg, the hand, the hip tissue,
Yeah.
they weren't random acts of terror. They were being harvested.
Yes, Rolf Lanik, the SS chief physician, was using Michael to acquire specific, fresh, human tissue samples, probably for some kind of perverse medical experimentation, research connected to the war, or to racial pseudoscience.
That explains the strange signature. The string, the linka, the gauze, the floor.
Exactly. It wasn't just ceremonial. It was likely related to restraint or a specific preparation protocol connected to the medical collection of these tissues. The terror here is that the victims were reduced not just to corpses, but to biological material.
Murdered outside the ghetto and then dumped on the wire as a calculated message of terror and dehumanization.
It raises the essential question about Michael. Was he coerced? Was Lanik threatening his daughter Helena, who needed the insulin?
Or was he a willing participant?
Given his calculated betrayal of Ziv and Erik and the cover-up of the abortion death, the manuscript suggests he was a willing, though perhaps rationalizing participant. He was exchanging the lives of these children, who were already compromised by the ghetto's criminal economy, for his own family's survival. He saw them as expendable.
The moment Erik figures all this out, he immediately becomes the primary target.
The killers realize their operation is compromised. Ziv is framed, but Erik is still free. He knows too much.
Which leads directly to the attempted assassination.
Someone is sent to kill Erik, but they make a mistake. They kill Bina's uncle, Freddie, who is sleeping in the main room. The killer sees the women there and just bolts.
And this confirms two things. First, the killers believed Erik was still alone and had to be silenced. And second,
The mistake confirms it was Michael who sent the killer. If it had been Roey Klaus, the conductor, he would have known Erik's living situation had changed. He would have known Erik was now sleeping in Stefa's old room. Michael, relying on old intel, made a fatal error.
The attempt on his life solidifies everything. It removes any last shred of intellectual passivity from Erik. His final mission is now one of immediate, violent justice.
With the enemy unmasked, Erik and Izzy shift their focus from investigation to execution. Justice entirely outside the rules, they decide to eliminate Lanik.
They use the lead from Irene's dream, Jizz in the Butcher.
They find him and, through coercion, force him to set up a meeting with Lanik. They lure the SS officer to a cathedral outside the ghetto, saying Michael sent a messenger.
And the final confrontation it's brutal and it's swift.
Lanik arrives, and Izzy, the friend who joked about his pistol, Marlene, becomes this unequivocal agent of vengeance. He murders Lanik, smashes his head against the stone floor,
And then stabs him with the silver letter opener.
the letter opener that Erik had stolen from the jeweler's desk. The symmetry is profound. He weaponizes a stolen artifact, a symbol of their moral compromises, to deliver justice.
And his last words to Lanik.
Chilling, he closes the loop on the whole tragedy. Adam and Anna say hello.
With Lanik dead, the clock is ticking. They have to run.
Immediately. They escape Warsaw with the help of Jashin Makinska, a former patient of Erik's. She drives them to her sister Liza's farm near Pujaue, a temporary, desperate sanctuary.
Their plan is ambitious. They want to get to Odessa in Soviet Ukraine, then get a boat to Istanbul. From there, Izzy hopes to meet a friend in France. They're just trying to find a corner of the world where basic humanity still applies.
And they get a few months of peace at Liza's farm from March until early July of 1941. But that refuge doesn't last.
They're denounced.
Someone spots one of them, and this gives Erik a final, profound choice to make.
It's his final heroic act. Self-sacrifice. He chooses to give himself up, going up the stairs with his hands raised, shouting in German.
Creating a diversion, giving Izzy enough time to escape through the cellar door. The intellectual who tried to find dignity in exile finds his ultimate purpose in sacrificing himself for his friend.
And the consequences are immediate and devastating. Liza, who gave them refuge, is shot and killed by the SS officer who captures Erik.
Erik is taken to Lublin, where his identity, physician, intellectual, human being is systematically stripped away.
He's forced to work in a watch repair workshop. He's identified only by his tangential connection to a tailor's assistant's friend, a pathetic reflection of how far he's fallen.
He suffers this constant petty abuse. His shoes are stolen by another prisoner. A man named Yakub taunts him, calls him Dostoevsky's Jewish idiot. It's a psychological torture just as painful as any physical suffering.
And the final erasure comes swiftly. July 1941. He's selected for hanging. He's number 10.
He's executed, and in that moment, he finally becomes the ibbur who dictates the manuscript. His final thoughts, according to the source, are of his loved ones. He hears a childhood melody, Henshin Klein, as the hangman pulls the chair out from under his feet.
That return to the innocence of childhood music as he faces death. It's a striking detail.
And this brings us full circle back to Heinrich Corbin, the scribe, the man who ensured the story would live.
His postscript, written in 1954, confirms he continued the mission. He took Erik's advice to flee the ghetto. He took the manuscript with him, buried it, and later recovered it.
He survived, opened a printing house in Warsaw, and dedicated his life to preserving Erik's memory.
Heinrich also confirms the fates of the others. Liza, murdered the day Erik was captured. Izzy escaped, reached Istanbul by freighter from Odessa, and was heading for Marseille, though his ultimate survival is uncertain.
But there's a small piece of good news. Zachariah Manberg, the little acrobat whom Erik had hoped to save, he survived. Moved to Canada, became a law student at the University of Toronto.
So the manuscript itself, it really serves as Erik Cohen's ultimate contribution to the Jewish autobiography of this period. His purpose in returning as an ibbur wasn't just to solve a murder. It was to ensure that the Warsaw Anagrams existed.
To ensure that this story, with all its complex, contradictory characters and terrifying truths, existed as evidence.
So what does this all mean for us, for you listening? The greatest fear, as Cohen states, was that the Nazi attempts to remake the world would succeed, that they would erase the victims' identities and reduce the atrocities to abstract, nameless statistics.
And Cohen's story, with its incredible detail, the names, the places, the personal betrayals, the internal psychological landscape, it's a profound act of resistance against that erasure. It proves that memory resists.
Erik's final message to Heinrich is this powerful philosophical statement. He says, "Beware of men who see no mystery when they look in the mirror."
which refers, chillingly, to that terrifying lack of introspection in men like Lanik and Michael. Men capable of such cold, calculated violence who just rationalize away the human cost. It's the ultimate struggle between the detailed, specific, contradictory human life and the forces that seek to reduce individuals to numbers, or in this case, to tissue samples.
It's an essential truth for anyone studying this era, and Hennig left us with Erik's final grave instruction after his death.
After the Germans lose, they'll want us to forget all that has happened. One person, just remember one, and you will have foiled their plans.
So given this complex web of characters we've explored, Erik, Izzy, Michael, Lanik, Hennig, we leave you with this provocative thought for your own continued deep dive. Who is the one person that encapsulates the knowledge gained from this manuscript? Which single memory would you choose to preserve to foil the plans of oblivion?
That decision is entirely yours to make. Thanks for diving deep with us.